When someone takes someone else's property without permission, it is undeniably theft and a crime in the first place. There may be some saying about thieves having their own code, but that seems highly unlikely. Moreover, the impact of the thief's actions on those around them can vary significantly depending on who the thief targets. I've been married to my husband for 3 years. I've been wanting a child for a long time, and I'm finally expecting. I'm currently in the last trimester, and I'm feeling nervous and excited at the same time as I prepare for the childbirth. Today, I decided to wash the newborn clothes and underwear I received from our families and friends so I can use them anytime. My belly has grown so big that I can't help but say, "Here we go," whenever I bend over or turn over even a little bit. But strangely, I feel a little sad when I think that my time with this big belly is almost over. However, on the other hand, my desire to see my baby grows day by day like a balloon, and my husband and I talk to the baby in my belly every day. I wrung out the adorable baby clothes and hung them to dry, and then proceeded to wash the receiving blankets. There were 2 blankets in total. As I washed them carefully, while imagining wrapping our beloved child in them, and bringing the baby home soon, the baby kicked my belly gently. I thought the baby can't wait to meet me either, and that made me smile. The weather was lovely, and the breeze was gentle, so I decided to hang the laundry in the yard. I went grocery shopping in the afternoon, did some errands, and came home about an hour later. As I opened the gate and walked toward the front door, I just remembered. Oh, that's right. I hung up the baby clothes and blankets in the yard. I looked in that direction and immediately noticed something was amiss. I had hung 2 receiving blankets, but there was only one there. I rushed inside the house to unload my stuff and then went out into the yard to check again. However, there was no sign of the other blanket anywhere. There wasn't strong wind today, and if there were, other things would have been blown away as well. So, why on earth is it missing? The only possibility left is that someone stole it. But would someone risk stealing just one blanket? However, that particular blanket was a precious gift from my mother-in-law. So I really wanted to get it back. That evening, I called my mother-in-law, explained the situation, and apologized for losing the blanket. "Oh, it's all right, dear. It's not your fault. I'll get you a new one, so don't worry." She warmly reassured me, and I felt somewhat relieved. The next morning, after seeing my husband off to work, I went outside to take out the trash. As I was about to go back to the house after placing the trash in the collection area, I noticed a family of 3 coming out from the entrance of the apartment building across the street. Ever since I became pregnant, my attention naturally gravitated towards small children. The mother appeared slightly younger than me, and she was holding hands with a boy who looked around 3 years old. There was an infant who appeared to be about 6 months old in the stroller. They were so cute. I slowed down my pace and glanced at the 2 children. But then, I noticed something strange. The blanket that was snugly wrapped around the baby in the stroller. Could it be my imagination? It looked remarkably similar to the blanket that had disappeared yesterday. My head was burning up, bouncing back and forth between certainty that I was sure that the blanket was mine, and doubt that it can't be my blanket. Several days later, my mother-in-law came to our house and brought some food for us. "How are you doing? You don't have to push yourself, but since the weather is nice today, would you like to take a short walk?" she asked. I walked around the neighborhood with my mother-in-law while chatting casually for about 30 minutes and came home. That's when I spotted the mother and children from the other day walking towards us. They were about 10 meters away. Instinctively, I tugged at my mother-in-law's sleeve and whispered, "Oh, Nicole. Please look. Do you see that baby over there?" I signaled with my eyes. My mother-in-law sensed something in my demeanor and subtly shifted her gaze forward. "Oh, that blanket," she muttered. At that moment, the family turned to head toward the apartment building where they lived. To my amazement, my mother-in-law swiftly approached them and said, "Oh my, what an adorable child. I'm going to have a grandchild soon too." She started talking cheerfully. The young mother initially tensed up but, after staring at my mother-in-law's face for a few seconds. "Oh, it's you, the landlady. Hello," she greeted with a look of relief. "That's right, my in-laws own this apartment building. She regularly checks on its condition and does some cleaning around the apartment, so the tenants see her frequently. I'm sorry to inconvenience you because I think we're going to have another elevator maintenance inspection next month. By the way, you have such a cute baby. This blanket is lovely too, my mother-in-law remarked. I stood back a bit, observing the situation. Yes, I made this blanket, and my daughter really likes it. The mother responded with a smile. Oh, really? Handmade, you say? Can I take a look, please? The mother proudly handed the blanket to my mother-in-law. Yes, it's definitely handmade. I'm sure of it because I made it. My mother-in-law looked directly at the mother. What do you mean? This is so sudden, and I don't quite understand. The mother had a forced smile and shifty eyes. Take a look at this tag, please. See. I embroider the initials of my grandchild's name, who will be born soon, in cursive. Isn't that nice? By the way, what's your child's name? My mother-in-law pressed on relentlessly. I mean, it's just that. But that house is. The mother made a slip of the tongue. That house? Did you just say that house? What do you mean by that? Which house are you referring to? The poor 3-year-old boy looked puzzled as he gazed up at his mother. So, did you mean the house where you stole this blanket from when you said, that house? And you're trying to say that I don't live in that house? That's correct. That house is not where I live. The house you trespassed into is where my son and his wife live. When my mother-in-law said that, she finally noticed my presence standing some distance away from her, and her face became flustered and her body tensed up. This blanket doesn't belong to you, does it? Can you admit that? When my mother-in-law asked again, the mother pulled the child's hand with a pouty face and tried to enter the apartment. What is wrong with you that you would steal something from a neighbor's house like this and use it with impunity? If you're a parent, use some common sense. At that moment, a man emerged from the apartment building lobby and approached the family. Oh, you're back. I've been worried because you didn't come back and you didn't answer your phone either, so I came to look for you. Do you know them? He asked her and said hi to us. He appeared to be the husband of the blanket thief, and my mother-in-law told him that she was the landlord of the apartment complex. The blanket I had made for my grandchild who will be born soon went missing from my son's backyard, and I happened to see your wife using it, so I spoke to her. I hope I wasn't being a bother. The husband looked at his wife with a puzzled expression. A blanket? Didn't you say that your friend gave it to you as a gift? He asked her a good question. When I spoke to her, she said that she had made it herself. I'm not sure which version is true, my mother-in-law remarked, with her gaze fixed on the wife. Hearing my mother-in-law's words, the husband's expression changed, and he stared at his wife. What on earth are you doing? He said. Hold on, please. We shouldn't do this in front of children. If it's okay with you, why don't you come to our son's home some other day? We can have a proper conversation then. My mother-in-law suggested. The husband repeatedly apologized and promised to return and apologize again properly at a later date. The following Saturday, the couple came to our house with a gift as promised. The husband started apologizing as soon as he saw my husband and parents-in-law. I, as her spouse, would like to first of all sincerely apologize for causing you discomfort and sadness due to my wife's extremely childish and foolish behavior. I'm truly sorry. However, the blanket thief was looking away with her arms crossing instead of showing any remorse. I understand. Please have a seat. My mother-in-law said. The blanket thief promptly sat down in a chair, even before her husband. So, if you are saying this, it means you admit that your wife trespassed into the premises of this house and stole the blanket, correct? My mother-in-law asked. The husband said that that's correct and apologized again. I understand that we won't be forgiven just because we return the item back. I will apologize again and again until you forgive me. The husband seems to be a decent man, disproportionately so for this thief. The wife, on the other hand, still with the same pouty expression on her face, put her head on the back of the chair. And in the end, she sighed and started using her phone. Before the husband could reprimand her or say anything, my father-in-law, who has been quiet till now, suddenly spoke up. He had reached his limit. You'd better change that disrespectful attitude of yours. We tried to handle this as calmly as possible and even set aside time for you to explain yourself. You've been making your husband, who did nothing wrong, apologize for you, and you feel nothing as a human being. My father-in-law is usually a quiet man, but he is honest and old-fashioned, so perhaps he couldn't tolerate the attitude of the wife, and raised his voice. In response, the blanket thief glared at my father-in-law and retorted, "Shut up. You're making a big fuss over a stupid blanket. Stop nagging, old man. I returned it, so what's the big deal?" She expressed her true feelings and exposed her true nature. The husband hurriedly tried to defuse the situation, but my in-law's anger had peaked. "I see, I understand. If you are going to refuse to accept our concessions, then we have some ideas. That's enough. You can leave now." When my father-in-law said it, the blanket thief abruptly stood up, made the sound a tisk, and left in a hurry. The husband followed her, awkwardly apologizing profusely. My father-in-law immediately made a call to the real estate company, not bothering to hide his frustration. From his conversation, I inferred that he was planning to have the couple evicted from the apartment. But even though he was the landlord, I wasn't sure how much authority he had to enforce such actions. I didn't know anything about that kind of thing since I had no involvement with my parents-in-law's real estate. The house that she trespassed and stole something from with a sudden impulse was the home of the family of the landlord of the apartment building she lived in. I wonder if she regrets what she did a little now with this crazy coincidence. And then, this incident with just a single blanket turned into a big problem. 2 weeks later, my mother-in-law brought a new blanket she had made again. "I thought you might feel uncomfortable to use something that had been used by somebody you don't really know. Here, I'm sorry that happened to you," she said, handing over the soft, pure white blanket. Then, my mother-in-law informed me about what had happened with that couple afterward. My father-in-law had contacted the real estate company and conducted a survey among the tenants of the apartment. The response rate was higher than expected, and he had asked if there had been any issues or troubles since moving in the survey. Surprisingly, nearly 60% of the tenants responded that they were fed up with the poor manners of one resident. That one resident whom they complained about was, as a matter of fact, the woman who had stolen the blanket. She leaves the stroller and a tricycle in the hallway, and it is inconveniencing others. She parks her friends' vehicles in someone else's parking space without permission. Despite several warnings, she fails to follow the garbage disposal schedule and doesn't properly sort her trash. While she would complain vehemently if the residents on the upper floor make even the slightest noise, she lets her children run around as much as they like, chats loudly with her friends whom she invited, and blasts music with the windows open. My father-in-law said that he had taken a chance and conducted a survey. He decided to conduct this survey based on the assumption that if a person has the insane sense to trespass someone's property, there is a high probability that she is causing some kind of trouble in the apartment as well. His hunch proved right, and he requested her to move out immediately, using the residents' honest complaints as a shield. Well, I did feel a bit sorry for her kids and friendly husband, but in the end, the husband said, "You have every right to be angry," and accepted the eviction. My mother-in-law told me. A few days later, I was preparing for childbirth both mentally and physically as my due date was approaching. Since the weather had been nice and very hot, I decided to water the plants in the front yard. Then I thought I saw some figure move near the gate. I was surprised when I approached and saw what it was. There stood that blanket thief, staring at me. "Can I help you? What are you doing here?" I asked. She made a sound tisk and responded. "Thanks to you people, we had to pay moving expenses that we didn't have to pay, and it was a nuisance. You made such a fuss over a piece of cloth. Pay up. You pay for it. Our moving costs," she yelled. People passing by began to glance our way, surprised by her outburst. I had never met someone so lacking in self-reflection. I'm about to give birth to my child, but I can't help but feel sorry for your child, born to a mother like you. Have you ever tried to objectively assess your actions? Do you not find it even slightly strange that you're still attacking others like this? Please leave. If you don't, I'll report you to the police immediately. I warned while taking out my phone. When she heard the word police, the blanket thief hastily left without making any sound, as if she was a completely different person from the one with threatening attitude earlier. After that day, we never saw that family again. I gave birth to a healthy baby boy a few days past the due date. On the day I returned home from the hospital, I wrapped my baby in a new receiving blanket that my mother-in-law had made with all her heart, and I went home happy. Thank you for reading to the end.